Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Doe. I am an award-winning musician based out of the Coachella Valley. I have won Best R&B Artist of 2020 in the Coachella Valley Music Awards. I have won the Fantasy Star Season 2 award back in 2016 at Fantasy Springs Casino out here. And I've also been featured on a really cool show called No Cover on YouTube, which I'll put somewhere around. Which I'll put somewhere around here, so you can definitely check that out. Anyway, so yeah, so you might be wondering, why the hell I have a sock on my head? Well, it's to talk about this really important thing called balancing your creative and practical life. And as you can see behind me, I have a metric ton of clothes right here. I'm not gonna lie to you, like, I had clothes in my last video before, just chilling on my couch, and I just like literally moved them. But there was another set. They're all clean, by the way. These are my clean clothes, and I did some laundry twice now, and well, actually, my girlfriend did the laundry. I just kind of put them in the hamper and then separated them, and then yeah. So thanks, babe. Anyway, so this is all here, and I'm just gonna throw away this sock now. So, the reason why I'm showing you this is because I think it's really important to remember that there are different. If you're a creative person, generally speaking, sometimes you can be very messy. Sometimes the practical aspects of your life, at least from my personal experience, can be lacking. And that is something that people can sometimes shame, that our society shames sometimes, because, obviously, like, cleanliness is the closest thing to godliness and all that fun stuff. Well, sometimes it's really hard to be clean. Anyone who personally knows me knows I'm not the cleanest person in the world. But I have worked on it, obviously. I'm trying to anyway, and that's neither here nor there. So I want to talk about some really important stuff if you are specifically a creative and you're trying to balance out your creative and practical life. That being said, let's get right the into it. Okay. What does balance mean? Balance can mean different things for different people. Just putting it right out there. But for the purpose of this video, I'm specifically talking about two things. I'm talking about the balance between creative life and practical life. Practical is definitely encompassing things like your physical and your mental and your spiritual health. I use the term spiritual lightly because some people may not be spiritual at all. I'm basically atheist, but I'm not exactly atheist because I do believe in the possibility that there's something out there. But nothing has shown itself to me in a way that's like, hardcore, like concrete proof that there's some like God or thing happening that's like super, whatever. That's neither here nor there. I'm getting in a ADHD rant again. But so anyway, physical, mental, and spiritual health is the practical side. And of course, the creative side is also pretty all encompassing because you can be a creative in any type of aspect, whether it be music like me, or painting, or anything under the sun creative. So let's get down. Let's get down to it. So what does balance mean? In this particular situation, it is the ability to nurture your passions and your necessities, whether simultaneously or separately. You're gonna be dealing with a lot of variables in both those aspects of life, and it's okay to focus on like one thing more so than the other, as long as you're kind of going back and forth between those two things. Like, there will always be variables in your life. Even when it comes down to the simplest things like chores. Like, I know there's probably a lot of you out there who have a very meticulous schedule. Like you have a very planned out schedule. I would like you to comment and tell me how many times that schedule almost never goes to plan. Because like literally every single person I've ever known who has had a really, really meticulous schedule, almost nothing goes according to plan exactly. Like of course, like I'm sure it helps to have that schedule because then you have these things to like be able to do these things. And by the way, I've mentioned this every single time I've had a video so far. Set alarms. Set alarms for these things. I still need to work on that as well. I do have a few alarms that I definitely keep track of, as I've mentioned before, but you gotta set those things. This might be one of the last times I mention that at this point because this is like my fourth or fifth video where I literally say set alarms because it's very, very important. It's so important. It is like ridiculously important that you do that. Okay, so do that. It's gonna help you manage your necessities and your creative passions. That's all that it's gonna do. Setting alarms literally has zero detriment and like all the benefit. Okay, so set alarms. Now, balance does not mean there will be a 50-50 sort of thing between your creative processes and your practical life, and there probably never will be. This video is kind of in a tribute to this ring that I got. It's a yin yang ring. Because I have personally obsessed with the idea of yin yang and balance for like throughout most of my adult life. And I will tell you, after years of obsessing and trying to figure out what balance truly means to me personally, I will tell you that balance is almost never 50-50. That's actually one of the reasons why in the design of the yin yang ring, you see some, you got the black and white, but there's some white in the black and there's some black in the white. And that's because it's to remind you that there's always something from the other side, specifically talking about duality, that will still be within the other. And you can't really in a practical sense, you take some skills from your creative life, whether it be problem solving, which creative people are very good at problem solving, usually because, especially if they're in like a high pressure environment at work or something, or high pressure, even if their creative process is a part of their work. They're really good at problem solving because they're constantly being creative. They're trying to figure out new ways to do things and stuff like that. So in a practical sense, when you take it away from like the Buddhism and the spiritual stuff, there's stuff you can be creative in a practical environment. You can also be practical in a creative environment. Me, for example, I mix music a lot. I produce stuff, and that stuff it's still a part of the creative process, but you're looking at knobs, you're looking at sliders, you're looking at numbers, you're looking at things, you're counting. If you're recording music, or if you're literally practicing with a metronome, all of these things are like, practical in the creative space. So the point here is that like achieving balance between these two things almost never turns into 50-50. It could probably feel like a 50-50 when you truly do have a kind of flow between like balancing your creative stuff and your practical stuff. Then probably, even though it's probably not actually a 50-50 balance, you're still feeling like there is, because you have your flow finally and you don't feel like you're in an imbalance. So speaking of imbalance, the next point that I want to talk about when it comes to what balance means is, specifically, if you're trying to become a master of your craft, like a master of your craft, specifically for the creatives, there will be imbalance in your practical life, at least in the very beginning. Because, in my opinion, again, this is all, I'm I'm no certified life coach. I'm no like I have nothing. I'm not real. I'm not a prominent figure in determining what makes these things all come together. But in my personal experience, I will tell you that in the very beginning of your journey to master a craft, essentially most other things takes is on the back burner. um, if you've ever heard of the term idiot savant, uh, that basically means that you're like only good at one thing. I felt like an idiot savant for a really long time going into college because I never learned any trades. I wasn't very handy. I never had like a parental figure or any type of figure to like show me how to like fix stuff or maintain stuff even. Um which was more their fault than mine, but my goal, my passion after graduating high school was to literally pursue music. And that was just the thing that I chose to do. So like, when it came down to to my practical stuff, like, other than like, basic hygiene, which I will admit I was a lot worse at that than I even am now back in the high school college days. Yay for depression. Anyway, but that's another thing. You can check out my other videos and talk a little bit about that. But uh if you have a healthy obsession over becoming a master of your craft, I'm sure all of you who are not even necessarily creative, maybe you're going for a PhD, or maybe you're truly like grinding to become a master of a trade, whether it be mechanics or psychology or anything under the sun. I'm sure you guys have all experienced a time in your life, or maybe you're still experiencing it, where you're shooting so hard for that thing that a lot of other things take a toll. Like you lose time for relationships, socializing, hobbies, and the most important thing, rest. um, uh, I cannot tell you. I've had um, I've had people who do so much. Like I know people who do so much in their life that they do not have time to rest. And it is always important to find time to rest and recover. Uh, because the bottom line is you need to leave space for your physical, your mental, and your spiritual health, which is my next bullet points. If you work 2 to 3 jobs, like at a time, you have minimal time for socialization, exercise, and especially rest. If you try to implement any of those things, socialization, exercising, even finding relationships and stuff like that, while you're too busy, you won't be completely present during those times. And being completely present in a situation is extremely important for you to retain the information given to you at any given point while you're in that situation. And I'm talking like socializing too. Like when you're out and about and you're socializing, you could be anywhere from like your favorite bar or at a house party or just chilling with one of your best friends. Like if you're working 2 to 3 jobs and they're like grueling, they're constantly your schedule is full as hell, you simply will not be able to be fully present because your brain and your body is tired. And you can claim all you want that you can just drink some energy drinks or, what's it called? You have your own ways of like staying alert, staying awake. And while it is true that coffee, energy drinks, tea, anything that gives you a sort of like energy boost does or can improve cognitive function, your body is still tired. There's a lot of neurological things in stuff like caffeine that actually blocks certain receptors in your brain that tells basically your body is trying to communicate to your brain that you're tired. And so when you feel tired, that's your natural body saying like, hey, I'm tired. There's a lot of stuff in the drugs that you take that prohibit those like sensors, those receptors from telling the brain that. So you feel like you're not tired, Or maybe you do actually physically feel your body being tired, and yet your brain is like going a million miles an hour because you took the things. Yeah, well, that's not healthy. That's not good for you. I mentioned in another video that the recommended dosage of caffeine for adults is 400 milligrams daily. But for growing adolescents, like kids in college and stuff like that, it's only 100 milligrams. And I have to wonder, why in the hell are you supposed to be taking less caffeine in your developmental stages when your body's still growing than when you're an adult? Like, I feel like it could actually be, well, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe if you're in your developmental stages, you shouldn't have caffeine, especially because if you're developing, your body gets used to the use of caffeine when you're developing, and maybe that's why people get caffeine addictions, and then maybe that's why people are so addicted to coffee, because we're all told that we have to stay busy and do all the things and work so hard, and so caffeine's like become okay. Anyway, sorry, I had a little bit of a breakdown there for a second. Anyway, anyway, this being said, I know that times are hard right now. The unfortunate reality is sometimes the way that people survive is by working 2 to 3 jobs. That makes me wonder, like, about a lot of things like, are you being frugal with your money? Are you spending too much? Are you do you truthfully have so many bills that are important that you have to pay off like every month? Like there's a lot of things that I sometimes question, being that you know, I'm lucky enough that I don't have any kids. I don't have a lot of outstanding bills because I never took out loans. A lot of students take out loans and stuff like that. So, like, I have sort of a little bit of leeway to not have a lot of bills, and I don't have children. So, like, I definitely, like, I understand that some people have this essentially second life where they have to take care of a child, or all this stuff, and work 2 to 3 jobs, all while potentially having a passion of being creative and stuff like that. And that's a whole other thing that I'm gonna touch on a little bit later in the video today. But what I really want to mention before I move on to my next point is that no matter what you believe, I'm talking spiritually here, no matter what you believe in, uh, there is only a single pool of energy in your body that comes from your caloric intake, your nutrients, and rest. Those 3 things, and a little exercise, body maintenance. Those 4 things come together and help your body retain and maintain energy to do things. There is no such thing as a physical second wind without the help of drugs or a different psychological state. Now, psychological state is very important, obviously, because there's, obviously the term second wind exists for a reason, because maybe something, you could be an MMA fighter or something, and this is the championship rounds, you're in round 3, you just finished round 3, and you're like, oh my God, coach, I don't know if I can do this, man. This freaking dude just punched me in my face so hard that, like, I think my freaking spleen is broken. I don't know how my spleen's broken after he punches me in the face, but that's how hard he freaking punched me. So now I'm doing this weird, I don't know if I can do this, man. And then all of a sudden your coach says the most inspirational. He gives the speech that the King of Rohan gives when Theoden, when he's talking to, in Return of the King, Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King. My fellow nerds out there, you better be here with me, because that speech literally makes me emotional. You watch that, and then King Theoden is like basically saying, this might be our last stand for mankind, but we're gonna go, and shields will be splintered and spears will be shoved up orcs' asses. But we're gonna do this, baby. And then, anyway, so you get a speech like that, but from your MMA coach, your UFC coach, and then you just feel like you're just there and you're ready to go and you got 2 rounds left and all of a sudden you feel like you can do like 6 more rounds. Yes, I understand that's a second wind. That is psychological, all right? And psychology does sometimes have an intense way of increasing your body's adrenaline and keeping it sustained for just a little while longer. But of course, and please tell me, comments in the comment section, if you're an athlete, the crash after your second wind is absolutely insanely rough. And the reason why is because no matter your psychological or spiritual state, you have one pool of energy, ladies and gentlemen, one pool of energy in your body. So that being said, any actions you take during the day affect this pool of energy. So that's it. I wanted to discuss that because it is absolutely an important fact that you guys know about that, because I learned about this years ago. I forget what source, because I read a lot of like health articles and stuff like that, and I never write them down or cite them or anything like that. So sorry, I should probably like cite some stuff that like, you know what, after this video I'm probably gonna actually like cite some stuff on my in my description and stuff, because that would probably be really cool and I won't sound like a complete blabbering idiot talking about this stuff. But I really do like learn a lot of shit when I talk about this stuff. So this is all relevant and important. But anyway, I'll do that. You know, maybe I'll go back to my videos too and cite some stuff too and put them in the description. Anyway, I want to move on to my next point when I'm talking about leaving space for physical, mental, and spiritual health. And that is, you gotta be comfortable. Oh, specifically when you're like spending time learning your craft, you know, being creative versus practical. Sometimes you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, what that means is you're not going to get rich quick learning a craft. You're just not, especially in the learning process. And even after the learning process and the application process, very, very, very few people get a lot of money fast. It took me 30 it took me 13 years to be at the level of money that I'm making now, which is not a lot, but it's enough to be sustainable doing music. It took me 13 years. I went from 18 to 31. I'm 31 years old now, and I'm making pretty much the same amount of money a person doing a full-time job that isn't creative necessarily would be making. 13 years. Obviously, everyone's situations are different. The point is here is that I have been uncomfortable throughout a lot of my life. You know, living in a casita, which I'm super grateful for. I'm not saying I'm ungrateful for that, because the rent was super low and I was able to learn my craft and apply my craft without the major, like, you know, oh my gosh, I need to pay rent, what do I do kind of thing. I was able to focus much more on my craft, and that was the whole point of that. But you're obviously not in a big space. You got a freaking casita, and I lived with a person for a time in that tiny casita with 2 cats. So like, you know, you learn, you have to be comfortable with being comfortable, especially you have you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially in the early times of your learning and your application. The reality of the situation is, unless you do work 2 to 3 jobs, which I did once before, and that was the most weight I've ever gained in my life. I had a little bit of a gut, you know. It was terrible, and I love being active. I do, but I couldn't. I really couldn't be as active as I wanted to be when I was working all that time. You know, but the reality is sometimes you do things that you got to do, and then you sacrifice things, you know. So there's that whole thing. Anyway, wow, I feel like this one today is a little bit ranty and a little bit it's like I have ADHD or something. And if you want to learn more about that, check out my other videos. Anyway, I'm gonna move on to my next bullet point because I actually am running out of time. Okay, my next thing is, and this is, it definitely relates to balancing creative and practical life stuff, but I feel like this could also just be a really important thing to know in general. Stay attuned with your philosophies and remind yourself of them. Um, kind of escape the noise of the world whenever possible. This means like anything from meditation to simple relaxation. And if you're really busy, just take mental notes sometimes. I tend to be a little bit of a Buddhist. Like with a lot of the way I think and try to work my life. I'm mostly vegetarian, pescatarian technically, because I still love sushi so much. I love sushi so much. I can't stop. I want to stop, but I can't stop. No, I don't want to stop. That's the point. But I need to stop. Anyway, oh God, what is this video becoming? Anyway, uh, if you don't have time to relax very much or meditate or whatever, just take mental note of the things that you need to remind yourself of. Remind yourself of, if you're a Christian, take a moment to remind yourself of your favorite Bible verse. If you're a little bit of a Buddhist slash atheist like me, I don't know what Buddhism is a little bit more of a lifestyle more than a religion anyway. But I remind myself that to respect all life, no matter what. I remind myself of my favorite word, which is sonder. It's technically a made up word, but all made up words are all all words are made up words in the beginning. And really cool fact: sonder is sonder is the description of the feeling you get when you realize that every single person's life is just as vivid as your own. Rewind that if you have to get that again, but everyone's life is just as vivid as your own. This is like completely the opposite spectrum of like the centrism philosophy, where like the world revolves around you in like a philosophical way or whatever. Which of course you can only perceive the world as it happens all around you. So yes, of course you're kind of the center of your own universe, sure, but I remind myself of sonder as often as I can because it leaves room for me to feel empathetic for people. But also at the same time, it leaves room, even if I don't feel like being empathetic, I can at least try to make sure I understand people enough to where I don't hurt them. I don't like intentionally hurt them. And these types of things, reminding yourself of your philosophies and stuff like that, is really, really important for you to continue feeling the passion that you're feeling for whatever it is you're trying to do, because your philosophies while growing up are part of the reason you chose your creative work. I know there's probably some people who choose a passion or creative thing strictly for the money. This is not for you. I don't know what to tell you. If you chose a creative thing just strictly to make money and that's it, and it doesn't give you a sense of like fulfillment or whatever, I don't know what to tell you. I can't relate to you on that. But if you anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it reminds you why you're doing the thing you're doing. Like, remind yourself why you love music so much. Remind yourself why you got into painting. Remind yourself why you are like a BMX biker or UFC fighter or whatever it is you need to remind yourself of, because it always stems back to your philosophies. Like, why does music make you feel the way you feel? Stuff like that. Now, I am really running out of time here, so I gotta. Wow. Okay. So this is an unfortunate reality that I have to address because it would be a disservice if I didn't address this. Talking about balancing creative and practical life. And that is the harsh reality of having children or families while pursuing creative passions. You will have less time to work on virtually any passions that you would normally have time for immediately as soon as you figure out you have a child. That is an unfortunate reality. But you have to understand too that you need to leave room for your child. You need to leave room for your child and your husband or wife to make that child have the best possible upbringing they could possibly have. I am actually a super big advocate of not currently having a child for myself because I know how unpredictable the music industry is. I know how unpredictable the creative industry in general is. And I know how much time you have to give to it with very little given back in order for you to thrive. And that being said, I am wholeheartedly 110% under the philosophical, I guess it's a little more practical and philosophical in my opinion. This opinion that if you have a child, you need to back off a little bit from your creative passion. The reason why I say this is because my dad actually was on the brink of being a successful artist. He back in like the early 90s to late 80s, like he had this like single, it was going really well. He went to like Sony to like record it and everything. And back then, like A&R was a little different than like nowadays. Nowadays, you can basically record at home and release an entire album if you wanted to. And there's way less hurdles you have to go through, which to be fair, that I need to be fair. But at the time, he needed to pay a lot of money, which you still do sometimes if you go to a professional studio, and just put a lot of time and effort into it, release multiple demos. There were still tapes going on. A lot of studios still used like tape and stuff like that. Not a whole lot of them used computers quite yet at the time. Whole big thing. He found out that my mom was pregnant with me right a year or two after he like recorded his single, and he gave it up. He, in my opinion, did what was super noble and super honorable, and he essentially said, "Oh, okay, I am not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to pursue becoming a teacher," which he did. Back then, it felt like teachers were paid really well. I'm not sure about now, but I remember when I was growing up that we were relatively well off, at least in the financial standpoint and everything. There's a bunch of family drama and stuff I'm not going to get into in this video, but the bottom line is that he understood that his child was first. And in a remarkably harsh industry like music, you really can't, especially if you're trying to like be a touring original artist, or if you're trying to like break through or something like that. It's really, really not gonna bode well for you at that certain point. Now, of course, I'm sure there's other creative, like, if you're not really looking to make money off of this stuff and you're really just doing it as a passion slash hobby, and you're doing work on the side, or maybe you're one of the fortunate ones who you're with somebody who literally makes so much money that you don't need to work, and maybe they're okay with you just pursuing your passion still while you're having a kid. Okay, there's so many different exceptions to what I'm saying right now, that obviously, like, if you got it, go for it, right? Your children may very well become your new passion, and that's valid. Like, you could love your child so much that like you're like, you know what? I'm good. Like, I will do anything and everything else besides my passion to make money for this kid, to make them have a good life. That's absolutely okay too, and very honorable and very noble. Again, it's just one of those things that I needed to put out there. But the last thing is, you gotta remember to have fun. It's a passion because it's fun for you. Creatively, a lot of people have different passions that are like intense, like political passions and what have you, and stuff like that, which I don't really have political passions at all whatsoever. But I still voted, but I don't have the passion of talking about that kind of stuff. But anyway, remember to have fun, please. Have as much fun as you can. Life is hard, I know, but that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching. Check out my album. I'm gonna do that for a little bit now, and check me out on No Cover. It's really cool. It's an interesting thing. One of my next videos might actually be talking about my experience on No Cover. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I gotta get going because I have some stuff I gotta do. So, thank you guys so much, and have an amazing night. Bye bye.